audio issues, so.
Yeah, they're all back on now.
Yeah.
Al, can you hear us?
Yes, you're back.
Thank you.
I don't see the meeting, she only sees her name.
Send her a link.
Did she hit the, yeah, can you send her the link? Or did she hit the link on the top of the, does that one work on the top of the agenda? That's the one that should be used.
Number there if she wants to. Next to the picture. She just has to type in that number 349-2888.
Smells like sitting in the traffic at Greenbush.
Yeah.
Like Chris is doing this, because I can never text. Very cool. So what are you doing?
Hello, Dave.
Hey,
I thought you'd see me. While we're
I
waiting,
thought you were pointing at the speakers
no, while we're waiting, would you entertain a comment?
on,
Well, it doesn't have to be on the record. About this, these microphones are pointed everywhere but where they should be pointed. You can't, I'm getting old, my hearing is not what it used to be, but it's very loud, so you can't hear everything. I've decided I'm sitting in the front of the room from here on in. But even people with good hearing, you can't hear anything because the microphones are pointed down at the floor or up in the air.
all right, everybody make sure your microphones are pointed towards you and speak into them, please.
And to make sure that they're on, because so.
They're-
I don't know if the record question.
Just gonna be an all night off the record questions.
Can I get a telephone cushion, please?
What?
A telephone cushion?
Bring it yourself.
She said you logged in.
You're just asking for trouble asking the question. You know that, right?
She's not popping up on here at all.
Well, I wouldn't, I mean,
Well, I mean, Ken's here. I don't know
Yeah.
if you feel comfortable with answering questions or saying anything regarding this project or discussion.
I just text the boss, make sure it's okay with her.
yeah.
Right.
Smart man.
Doesn't want retirement to come too early.
Okay, so
All right, Mark, you had this, I know this is a baby of yours.
yeah, I read the report. I think it was a pretty good report. I just had some questions on the report itself, like, if he had any consideration for his recommendation to like redo the entire parking lot to get rid of those islands that are unnecessary and take up a whole lot of room. And I know he made mention just changing that one, taking away those two parking spaces, and that was it. I think we could do more than that.
Ken, just.
Can you come to the, yeah. Just let us know who you are.
Karen, I don't know if she.
Just
includes
state your
that.
record, who you are.
Ken Townsend, Westport Public Schools.
Yes, I did read your letter.
We,
Yeah.
Mark sent it to us. So we saw your letter. We saw,
Okay.
it, yes.
In the end of the letter, I put that they wouldn't comment. They would only put if there was a deficiency in the parking lot, and there were none. So they wouldn't comment on that because it was designed by a civil engineer at the time to meet all offsets to making sure the lanes are wide enough and there's parking spots wide enough. If we want to get into that, we'll have to get a civil engineer involved and say, can we change the parking lot to increase the size of the parking lot and the spaces that are there? But they wouldn't comment in that report.
Yeah, I did see that, but it's just, it makes sense to me why they wouldn't.
Because there's no deficiencies as they could find, is the way they put it to me.
He listed all the deficiencies.
Yeah, and a couple of them I disagreed with, as you saw, and the reasons why. And even increasing the parking lot size to add a few more cars, I don't know if that would relieve the on-street problem of people passing each other with impatience as people are lining up for arrival.
Well, obviously, in conjunction with his other suggestions, if we could, change the whole layout of the parking lot and increase the amount of parking, I think it would help with the street as well. To just take away those two, like he even put it in his report, that'll alleviate it somewhat, but it's not going to solve the
Right,
problem.
it's not going to solve the whole problem.
That's why I was thinking if we change the whole parking lot, and I don't know if the fire department, if you've spoken to them yet for the back.
No, I haven't spoken to them
So, I
about the
mean,
back yet. I'm
I
not
think
sure. if
that's a
we
good
can do
idea also, if it's feasible, but we don't want to give up one safety to.
it. No, we don't want to create another. Plus, it's not an actual road back there
Right.
for traffic to flow on at this time. It's just a pathway to get fire trucks back there. But our next step would be we'd have to look into getting a civil engineer out there to redesign the whole parking lot if we're going to do that. And again, that'll be another cost on top of everything else. If that's the avenue that we want to take, we have to get a civil engineer to come out and they'd look at existing plans and then look and see what they could do to increase the size of the lot.
Do you know why they only did a 1-day vehicle count?
That's what she originally gave us when the time that they would spend on the quote they gave us.
Oh, okay.
So that's what that was about. So I was keeping it as small as I could to have them see if they could come up with any immediate changes that we could make to resolve the issue.
So Ken, question though, if, like, there's a lot of factors involved here. If you redid the entire parking lot, added 20 more spaces, would those people use those spaces when they drop off and pick up?
No,
So
that's my opinion, but no, not my
So,
opinion.
and to play devil's advocate, I mean, we also have to look at, and I've been in the line, I mean, it's awful. I mean, it's like stop and wait. And, but you have all these newer houses coming in or condos or whatever it is. And if you, in this area to go to Greenbush School, if you continue to add them, this is just gonna get more backed up if people don't use the spaces.
Greenbush is maxed. So to say that we're going to put more people in Greenbush isn't going to happen. There's a 500 student population in that school's maxed out. So I don't see more traffic coming in than what we have now. There's the same similar situation happened at Horgan. The only way to resolve it was to give us more room to create a longer line. And that's what we've been trying to do for years, to try to figure out how to do that. The easiest way is bring us in the front and exit out the back. We know we can't do that unless we get DEM approval to get closer to that brook, and I don't ever see that happening. So we've never come up with a way to get traffic to be able to get in line to drop off. Horgan, we had the opportunity, we were able to change it into a one-way road, which gave us 2 paths and was able to give us a lot more room. The things we have done to resolve it, I know I've speaking to the choir, you guys know we've increased staff. We've allowed parents to drop off their kids 15 minutes earlier than they've ever been able to do before to relieve that rush. Because our biggest problem was people were getting there early, stacking up early, and then right out into Greenbush Road we went. So we were able to eliminate that by adding staff. They did make a recommendation to have 2 drop-off lines. I disagree with it 100% because I can control the buses where I cross kids across. They're professional drivers. I can't control parents in the mood they're in, or they're late for work or anything of that nature with students crossing in front of parents. I totally disagree with that.
And I agree with you on that because they prove every morning. that
They're
too
impatient waiting in line as
to
it
be- to
is.
care about the safety of others.
Right, never mind crossing kids in front of them while we're trying to do that. So I disagreed with that. And that would increase the line length for people dropping off. But I think the safety is more important than that line at this time.
And that's the whole reason why I bring this up is safety. So I mean, I agree with you there.
I just wish we had a way to increase that line, but
But he was only there one day and he noted a bunch of stuff in there that
Right.
happens because it
Every
happens
day he sees it,
every
yeah.
single day.
Yeah,
And
they
it's
saw
only
it.
a matter of time before somebody does get hurt. And so hopefully we can figure out something.
One of the suggestions was the sidewalk. I need to look into that sidewalk to make sure that we don't lose more parking spaces, because if we lose more parking spaces over the sidewalk, it's going to get more difficult in the afternoon. Because it's like, if we put the sidewalk in, it takes like 10 spaces away, and that's going to create us a bigger issue in the afternoon. So,
Karen
oh,
Does she have anything she wants to say?
Yeah.
Karen, anything additional?
Yes. Yes, well, first of all, I apologize. I don't know why I had such trouble logging in. Happy New Year to everybody. And I just wanted to thank you for your indulgence of my need to try to log in remotely tonight. No, I think Kenny really covered the gist of the report. As you know, there was the report and some recommendations. And there's some next steps, as Kenny already outlined, in terms of things we can look into, talking to the fire department about the possible use of that south end piece of the property. You know, some of the things we're doing are noted in the report as effective in terms of grouping cars for drop off. It's also noted that, you know, some in Kenny's recommendations that sometimes that's not always as smooth if there's a holdup with a car or two. So, but the staff makes the effort to group the cars for drop off. The one thing I vehemently don't agree with is the installation of bike racks. I think we're all concerned about the traffic issues, and if we have very young kids riding bikes to school in the traffic, I think that would not be a good recommendation at this point.
Yeah, I agree with you there, especially that section of Greenbush where there's absolutely no sidewalks. It's curvy and narrow.
Mhm.
Child on a bicycle is just, again, it's creating more of a hazard than it's ever gonna fix. So
So just out of curiosity, I know Greenbush has been there over 30 years now. Do we have any record of how many incidents, accidents, or situations we've had there? I know there's long lines, but
Right.
I'm just wondering how many accidents or
I think
incidents.
it's in
we've
their
had.
report.
It is, Kenny. And I
miss-
can
And
speak
it's
to that.
it's very minimal.
It says
I
in
think
the most recent 5 years, at Greenbush and Brat Lane, there were 2 accidents,
Right.
one with property damage and one with minor injury, personal injury. At Greenbush and Nottingham, there were 2 accidents, one with property damage and one with minor personal injury. And at Greenbush and Acorn, there was 1 accident with property damage.
That's over the last 5 years.
yes.
Oh, the most recent 5 years, correct.
So question, and it is related. You had mentioned that Greenbush is tapped out. So the kids that are new to the school system coming in to Ward 4 and 5, where are they going to go?
Right now, if a class gets full, we'll use first grade, for example. First grade is full up at Greenbush. Those kids get moved to another school within the district. They're either moving over to Greenbush or over to Wakefield Hills.
Morgan away.
Morgan, I'm sorry.
So what is the capacity of those two? Are they close to filling as well, or are they, is there a lot of?
I
room?
can't answer honestly to that, but I know there's room because we're moving them. I don't know what the max numbers are over there. I just know that for first grade. Karen, I don't know if you can speak
Yeah,
to that.
I can add a little bit. So there's a lot of considerations when we talk about the placement of students. One is, you know, we always try to keep kids in their home school. Secondly, we try to keep families together. So if we have a family with 2 students at Greenbush, one in 2nd grade and one in 4th grade, and 2nd grade is full, you know, it's be very difficult for a family to have the kids in 2 different elementary schools because every school starts and dismisses at different times. So that's a consideration. And the other thing that we always talk about is our high population of special education students and specialized programming. That also comes into play when we consider the placement of students at all levels, not just elementary. So every year that's a challenge for us. Some years, historically, we've had to, we call it redistrict kids out of their home school. And then other years we haven't had to redistrict kids out of their home school at all. So it really depends on the year, the number of incoming students, and the needs of the students.
Okay,
You have how many houses being built in your ward right now? Single families?
17 that I know of.
Yeah. And there's two that was just built, and then they're changing what was supposed to be condos down in East Greenwich Avenue, making those apartments, which probably gonna draw in more children. And Madison Ridge, they're renting instead of selling, which again, is probably gonna draw in more, so it's,
And from facility ends, it's a worry of the school district because it's where we're gonna put all these kids.
Right.
And meet all the program needs. So,
And the other thing that we talked about in the past is universal pre-K. That will be coming. I believe the date is 2028. And there's a lot of pieces to that. There'll be some state and most likely federal support for the local agencies. So I don't think the burden, for lack of a better word, will be on the district for every pre-K student. But we do need to consider that we will have additional kids pre-K. It's our goal right after the new year. Now that we're back in school, we're going to convene a committee to start the conversation about just that, our available space and what potential additional space we might need. As I said, there's just a lot of considerations. And to keep in mind that when we think about housing and condos versus apartments, over 55 housing, it's really important to keep in mind that 7% of our students are being raised by their grandparents as their legal guardians. So just because a family's, the adults in the family may be over 55, that qualify for that age bracket housing, doesn't mean they're not raising school-age children.
that's why the question was always, is it gonna be 1 or 2 bedroom? And they're usually 2 bedroom. And I think part of it's that reason.
I just want to keep us on track for the discussion of Greenbush Elementary, though. I know it coincides, but just,
Yeah.
Does anybody have any more questions for Karen or Ken on Greenbush? What's the next steps?
Yeah, next steps. What do we,
I don't have any.
And I was going to
Unless I
say,
get directed.
who's funding the next step?
Yes, I think that's a big thing. Who wants to fund it and what direction do you want to give me? Like I said, the only other thing we can look at to increase the size of the parking lot is a civil engineer to come in and tell us what we can do with the parking lot.
I think right now, if we wait and see what the fire department says, and if that's something that's feasible, see what kind of difference that makes if we can.
I am going to meet with them over that, and I'm also going to look at sizing that sidewalk to make it safer for parents to walk, but I just also want to make sure I don't lose parking spots. So
Right.
that's the other concern.
so the first steps will be looking at that space behind and
Right,
whether
to
that
see if
is.
the fire department will
right.
allow us to do that. And then if the fire department says yes, then the civil engineers need to get involved, and then we got to actually apply to DEM to see if DEM will allow us to do anything back there with pavement or anything. Because they didn't pave it when it was originally built, and I don't know why. So that could be why. Because all it's in the ground is brickwork in the ground to support the weight of the trucks. So
Did we need variances from DEM, do you know, to do the parking lot and the school where the way it is now?
yeah, we're so close to that brook.
Yeah.
Yes, everything would have to be DEM approved no matter what we did.
Still wonder why they put a school there, the way it's set up and everything else. It just doesn't make sense. I know, nothing we can.
All my
answer.
time.
No.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ken. Thank you,
Thank you.
Karen.
Thank you.
Thank you. And again, I apologize for my difficulty logging on.
Don't worry.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just, no, I'll leave it for public comment.
Consideration of procedure for tabled items.
So I asked for this to be put on the agenda because it seems like on a regular basis, we get stuff, we table it, and then we just never hear it about it again. Back in this November, I think it was, when the ADUs were being discussed, and Al DiFiore had asked, hey, can we table this and have a date that we bring it back up? I think whenever we table something, we should give it a date to bring it back so we don't just keep losing stuff. Because, I mean, this
What was it we were discussing?
ADUs.
Accessory dwelling units.
Okay, yeah.
So it's like, to me, that just makes sense. That way we always have a resolution to whatever is brought forward.
Well, normally when we table something, it should be on the next agenda unless it's not prepared. So like for Al with the ADUs, if he was, I think if I remember correctly, he actually said, I'll have it ready for you by such and such a meeting. And then he did. It was brought before us. We untabled it and then we talked about it. So normally, when you table something, it should be on the next agenda unless the attorney or whoever is not ready for the next agenda.
And that's what I'm saying, either the next, if we make sure that it just happens, it's on the next agenda, or if it's not ready for that, and we know it's not gonna be ready for that, just put down a date. All right, we'll do it at this meeting. We'll put it
So you-
back on. If it's not ready, just table it again. That way you just never lose it. Because stuff gets tabled and, I mean, just never hear about it again.
So you're suggesting a running list of tabled items and we take them off, and Sarah, I don't know if you've had any experience, Sarah, or any suggestion as far as that goes?
Well, I would definitely defer to Tim on the Robert's rules clarification, but my understanding is if you vote to table an item, and you don't bring it back for action by the next meeting, it automatically goes away.
Without any council bylaws.
Tim, fix your microphone, please.
Without any bylaws, Sarah's correct. However, your meeting minutes always reflect what was done in the prior meeting. So that's part of the next agenda. So it's part of that agenda. So if you want something specific as to keep it in play, I mean, I don't think there's no prohibition against that. However, if the council is not ready to go forward, or there's not a recommendation, or you're awaiting something, you're better off keeping it not, I would think, not on a strict calendar, but just something as far as maybe future business.
Are we ethically bound to do that?
Bound to do what?
As far as the ethics, I mean, I have to go before the ethics board, I don't know how many times already to get different opinions. Are we, once we table something,
Mhm.
like maybe I have a different perspective. We table it means, all right, we're either not ready to talk about it or we need more information. So we table it, we put it on the shelf. And then at that point, we're gathering information, just like you're doing with Payne Street. And then we take it off the shelf so we can make a proper decision on something.
That usually happens at the next meeting.
But-
If a couple of meetings go by, it should be brought back as a new item again. But again, if there's ongoing business and there's separate parts of it, nothing prevents the clerk from putting on the agenda, continuing business, new business, or just addressing, there's different ways to address it, but normally, if you don't address the tabled item at the next meeting, it's usually gone and you have to restart the process. That runs into problems with ordinances because you got the 20 days once the second reading is done. So that's the biggest one's always with ordinances. When you have projects, you have a little more flexibility.
Okay. So I'm just looking at closing the loop. It's done, it's over, and
That's my
you
whole
move on
point, that's
somehow,
right.
you know?
Well,
There's a-
again, when you, nothing prohibits a council member from taking or asking for a vote after a second that the matter that was just requested to be tabled by Attorney DeFiore will be back on the calendar on, the next meeting, the next two meetings, or something where you're notifying the public as to what's going on. Because you're really not acting on it. You're just actually continuing it.
And
Right,
I think
right.
Al always says that, always table it until a period certain. Yeah.
I think we should do that with everything we end up putting on the table, is have a date certain, so we have some resolution to everything. It doesn't disappear because we get busy doing other things. It just,
Well, it could be done through the town manager's report. It could be done through, again, you get the meetings, the minutes of the past meetings that indicate what you guys were talking about, where it was going, or a specific request by someone saying, please put it on the calendar, not for the second meeting in January, but the second meeting in February. Nothing prohibits you from doing that. It's just going to be who's going to keep track of it all.
well, I'm just saying, if we commit as a council that we're gonna, all right, we discussed Greenbush parking tonight, we didn't have a resolution, not to say that we did, but just as an example, can we table it and then put it on, the first meeting in February? It's always at the end of everything we table, put it back on the agenda,
Sure.
and
Normally-
because then there's
I
no
think we
running
normally do
list.
that.
Right.
And then if there's something we take zero action on, it doesn't come to fruition, it doesn't get put on. But for instance, I know anything we've tabled, we've said, let's put this on for the next agenda or a workshop or whatever. I mean, and going forward, if you want to make sure we do that, we can do it that way.
That's just make sure that we do it, because it just seems like there's things that we just don't ever resolve, and I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I don't have a specific example. It's just sit back and say, we keep tabling stuff, and then I don't remember it ever coming back up. So just wanted to put it out there. When Al did it for the ADUs, I thought, that's to me, the proper way to handle it is to put a specific date so we don't lose it.
We'll just make sure we do it as a council going forward. All right.
That was it.
Do we have offhand, I don't know if anybody knows, do we have a lot that's on the table now, off the table, that we need to bring back, or?
Not that I'm aware of. I had one thing, I had a tabled folder that I had started myself since I've been here. And I had one outstanding thing in it that I think was resolved differently, I
Okay.
should say, than what originally had come forward. Or there was a letter for funding or something. But I mean, I think that Mark is right, and putting a date certain always is fine. The reason why Al does those is because of advertising. With ordinances, you have to advertise them. So if you're going to continue something that you've told the public that they're coming to, then you need to continue it to a date certain, so that way they know what the
Gotcha.
date is. Nothing precludes you guys from doing that as well for anything else.
All right, just moving forward, we'll make sure.
And if there's something that you guys had talked about before that you want to bring back, just ask for it to be a new agenda item.
Let's put just action discussion, and if there's just discussion with no action, you can put it on the next calendar, next agenda, excuse me.
All right.
Upcoming appointments, sewer use board of review, appointment to fill a vacancy as an alternate member for 3-year term. Sewer use board of review, appointment to fill a vacancy as a regular member for 3-year term. Board of assessment review, appointment to fill a vacancy as a regular member for a term ending March 2024. West Warwick Housing Authority, appointment or reappointment for 5-year term expiring November 2027. Public forum.
Public comment. Mark, you go first. I know you said you had something.
Yeah, I just, again, I brought this up before, as a councilman, there's stuff that I just don't ever hear about. Or I hear about by accident. Like the Green Bush report being done, the last meeting, I didn't know it was completed. But you and Mary Beth knew.
I only knew because I bumped into Ken at Target and he told me that the report was done today, and that's all I said at the last meeting.
Right, I'm just saying, but you guys knew and I didn't. And that's something in my ward, something I keep putting on the agenda. Then, the other thing I found out by accident is the sale of the land that was on the ballot. That it actually gets sold, and I don't think anything was ever put out there to us as a council or anybody else. And that's something a constituent might come up to me and say, hey, what's going on with that land? I don't know anything about it. There was a water main break on New Year's Day in my ward. I found out about it by walking my dogs and having a person stop me saying, hey, when am I gonna have water back? Yeah, I mean, these
I
are,
don't know that.
I didn't know that either.
good, but these are like with ward-specific things, especially, I think we as council people really should be communicated to make sure that we're fully aware, because, I mean, we are representative government, and it's hard to represent when you don't know what's going on. When you're not told the certain things, then it's kind of hard to give the information to those who come to you and ask questions. So it's just one of those things, just, again, I've put it out there before, can we try and do a better job with communicating and informing and making sure that, we all have the same knowledge. It's just, like I said, it's aggravating to me when people ask me questions and I don't have an answer and other people do.
I really don't have answers for the specific ones that you just brought up, but I was always under the impression that the weekly email, that with the exception of a holiday week or something like that, when I don't have staff supplying reports, is fairly comprehensive. If there are specific things I'd like to know about them, because some things I may not be aware of, so I can't share them. But if there's a gap or a miscommunication there, I want to work it out with the department heads so it comes to me and I can pass it along.
Yeah, no, I mean, the weekly reports are great. I mean, I appreciate them. There's a lot of information in there, but there's the other stuff that, like I said, like the Green Bush report, and not throwing stones at anybody or anything, but the council president, council vice president knew about it, and they're the furthest away from the Green Bush problem.
But I just knew about it because Kenny said he was getting it next week at that meeting that we had up at the school.
I know, but you said they have it.
I said, I thought.
As soon as I got it, I flipped it to
In-
everybody.
in defense here, again, that Monday night, I bumped into Ken. It came in that afternoon. So he didn't even have a chance to even
Yeah,
review it.
it's-
He just said, just giving you a heads up.
I'm just
the
using
report
that
came in.
as an example.
So-
And
so the
it was
Kent
holiday,
County-
I had COVID, so I was out.
I was just using that as an example.
Sorry,
of-
Ken, I didn't
of
give you
how,
anything, right?
I don't always get a lot of the information, and it's usually, I get it when a constituent brings something to my attention. And it's hard to represent when you can't give the constituent an answer for something that, like, again, with the Greenbush thing, I was reached out and asked, hey, what's going on with that? And I didn't have an answer. I know you said the following week, but I also know how businesses are, especially at the holiday time. You might not have gotten it then. So it's like, all right, just sitting back. Again, not picking on the Greenbush situation is just an example that's current. That's all. So
So where was the water main break?
right up the street from the manager's house, Silverwood at Cold Spring.
I didn't know about it either, so.
Yeah, well, so that's,
I think in general, I think as a councilman or council person, there's 5 of us. If there's anything, I mean, with the department heads, I know it's like day-to-day stuff and it's just routine. But if there's something that you feel that we should know about that's in our specific ward, I think that we should know about it. Because I just find it very embarrassing when a constituent comes to you and say, hey, you probably didn't know about this, or what are you doing about this? And it's like trying to cover it. The bottom line is lay it on me because I have no idea what you're talking about.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying anybody's doing anything wrong because
No, I don't think
you're
it's,
doing your day-to-day operations, but I think something major, that we should be aware. That's all.
And I think most department heads send us either text messages. I know if there's a fire in
Police
your
and fire reports
area,
and stuff.
we get to work in fires. I know Colonel Levine has always been very good at sending us stuff that's going on, telling us, please, this is confidential, but this is what's
No,
going on at this point.
or even as small as like, hey, tomorrow there's gonna be a traffic, issue with this road. They're gonna be starting construction on West Street, or just to let you guys know, I would just share this on the police department page, give it a share, let people know. I mean, but as far as those things, definitely police and fire.
no, I agree with you. I mean, especially the chief,
And Jeff also
Yeah,
weekly
both chiefs.
updates with the town manager.
they had a chimney fire right behind my house and I got notified by the chief pretty quickly. So,
I mean, the water main, I don't know who would be necessarily.
That was one of the
Kent
ones.
County
that-
Ward,
yeah.
yeah.
No, I'm just thinking, if
Yeah,
that
that one,
happens.
I'm like, I don't even know how that one would go through. So.
That's the first I heard about it.
It's interesting.
We didn't even know about
There's a huge hole, 6 and 7 feet deep.
Really?
it. We would never know about it. The call back.
And that's an issue.
Yeah, they probably they should be letting you know at least, yes.
Maybe they called Fred.
Gary got the phone.
Just saying. Okay. All right, any other public comment? All right. You
Bert
can,
Monahan. Monterey Drive. And I would like to present this to the council. If the council would consider bringing back those old chairs and get them upholstered, I'll donate $1,000. And the only thing, I don't need a lot of paperwork. All I need is a handshake from the president of the council. When the chairs are brought back, reupholstered, I'll hand over $1,000.
Well, thank you, but
And those things were built like a battleship.
well, the reason being is we could not keep them clean, the amount of it was disgusting sitting in them.
health issue. Yeah.
And so with these here, they're able to be wiped down, cleaned, so on and so forth.
But there's no handlebars on it. These things here, and for anybody to sit down, most people grab onto these things, to sit down. And you can't take a little nappy in one of these. The offer is there. I don't need any paperwork. If you decide to do it, a handshake is all I need.
We will make sure you have a very comfortable chair, Bert. That I can assure you. Well, you're on your own. Yeah.
And the last one, he was a councilman, I think, on the first ward. And he served 1 term, but before he left, he bought everybody a seat. And I bought my own seat, which was $65 at that time. But that's what we got. And those chairs were nice. So, I mean, they were comfortable. They had armrests on it. That's all.
Thank you, Bert. Any other public comment?
Since we're shooting from the audience,
When you're 93, you can.
Yeah.
He's honorary.
well, I would love to see one of those nice leather upholstered chairs brought in for our distinguished town sergeant. Those are beautiful chairs. They're very comfortable. Wouldn't that be nice? He can sit right there in a nice leather upholstered chair that's easily wiped down when needed. And
Mary Beth did offer it to him out in the hallway and
Didn't
he
want
chose
it.
that one.
Yeah.
thank you, Mary Beth.
Yeah, that's okay.
Last call. Hearing none.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Have a good night, everyone.